everyone, and welcome to our latest open house. I am Olivia Kory. We are so excited to be joined today by Raquel Alexander and Evan Fein, two seasoned marketing and finance leaders who know the ins and the outs of building the CMO-CFO partnership. Raquel has an amazing track record as a marketing exec at companies like Nav Technology, TextNow, eHealth, Shutterfly, EA. She's been a house customer at multiple brands now, an absolute powerhouse, and we are just beyond excited to have her here today with her former colleague, Evan. And Evan is currently the Chief Financial Officer at Omnidian, and these two most recently worked together at TextNow. Evan is also an enormous wealth of knowledge, and we're just so happy and grateful to have you here for this conversation. These two are really, some of the best at their respective functions, and just excited to be learning from you both today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks for having us.
Just a little context on this topic today. This is something I am super passionate about, working with and speaking with a lot of brands as part of my role. And something I just see time and time again is that the strong CMO-CFO relationship is really key to a healthy and functioning culture. Not just in terms of culture, but also just in terms of driving real business outcomes. So I want to get into this a little bit more, get practical, and hopefully the audience and listeners can walk away with some tangible advice on how to strengthen this partnership between marketing and finance, which is, again, just a critically important one. So before we get into it, Raquel, can I ask you to help kind of set the stage a little bit and share more about your experience and professional kind of relationship with Evan and how you two know each other?
Absolutely. So Evan and I actually worked together, as you said, during our time at TextNow. So I think we overlapped for close to 3 years, maybe a little less. And I like to say we built a really great way of marketing and finance working together and operating together to stay fluid with budgeting and enable really what's best for the business. I'll say we didn't have set budgets, right? We followed results and performance, but all this really worked because it was built on a lot of trust between us and between our teams. I think that is going to be a key topic today, as you'll see, is how to build that trust so that you can have an amazing operating relationship as well.
Awesome. All right. And, you kind of teed this up in terms of building trust between these functions. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that looks like practically, and how do you actually build a trusting relationship? I guess, I'll start with Evan here, and then I'll probably ask the same of Raquel.
Yeah, I learned my own journey with the importance of trust building starts in 2009, 2008, when, I was an executive, but I really didn't appreciate or understand the importance of high trust relationships. I think that's so important because if you can trust your colleagues, then you can really talk about the toughest business problems on the table and know that there's not positioning or politicking. And so it's been this journey I've been on for 15 or 16 years. I've been a CFO for 25 years now. And the way that I like to build trust is really to be vulnerable. Oh my God, I love admitting when I make mistakes, when I screw up every day. Oh my God, every day.
I will say, I think, I had always felt that those people that I trusted I worked best with, but I never really had the language or the tool set to really build that intentionally, honestly, until I met Evan. And I learned a lot from Evan and how intentional he was about trust building. And, the vulnerability-based leadership that he brought to the table at TextNow was really kind of eye-opening. I've always been somebody who, you can say colloquially overshares a little bit, but at the same time, really doing it intentionally. And one thing, Evan, that you talked about that I'll build on is really being transparent when you screw up, when you've made a mistake. I think that is so foundational to building trust in any relationship, and especially in this marketing finance relationship, right? Because finance wants to know, hey, marketing's got their act together. They're not going to blow through this budget. I can trust they're doing the right things. And so for marketers to be able to say, hey, we did this thing and it didn't work, or actually it went kind of wrong, and here's what happened. I think that is one really key way to also build that trust outside of everything Evan mentioned about, personal rapport and whatnot, really being open about the bad things and not just sharing the good.
Yes, this comes up all the time at house when sometimes a result is positioned as a bad result. Like, this thing didn't work. And the teams that I work with who I think are most successful with like incrementality testing and just with their marketing program in general are the folks who can like see the good in a bad result of like, hey, what this means is this just freed up a whole bunch of money for us to reinvest elsewhere. And we're going to take swings and we're going to miss. And that's okay. And we're just going to call it, we have a value here of like, call it what it is instead of just trying to put lipstick on a pig. So that is, like the no lift results are actually some of the best results we can get. And it's really important, I think, to like have that type of culture where you feel like you can be honest about sunshining the things that didn't work as well as the things that did.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember these seminal moments in my relationship with Raquel, because see, I bring baggage to the relationship, right? Like I'm just a human, and I bring baggage, and the baggage I bring is twofold. One is kind of lack of, I'd never worked at a mobile app company before. Oh my God! So the clarity of like ROIs and results I had never seen before. That was so, it was, I used to just be like, put the money in the top of the funnel and hope it comes out at the bottom, it was like hope. And so that was a learning. I needed to be brought along. Raquel and team had to bring me along with the quality of data we have, the certainty that we could get on ROI. That was not, but the other baggage I had is, and I'm not saying justified or not, but like some marketing executives or other trying to build their brand and not do what's best for the business. But maybe they wanted to build the fiefdom, or they wanted to have they wanted to build a resume, or there was something on they wanted to advance their career. There was something on their agenda that I was skeptical of that prevented me from being the best partner that I could be, because I had this like baggage in my past. And so Raquel and her team suffered from my baggage. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then what gets me over that? Oh my God, it was just exactly what you said, Olivia. When we had when we would run a trial or run an experiment, and they would be like, nope, this didn't work, and therefore we're turning down our request for the next few months until, like, we don't need this much money. We only need this much money because we don't have a good place to put it. Oh my God, like nothing speaks to a CFO like in a marketing executive who puts money back that they are like entitled to spend. Entitled is a big word, but that they could justify spending. Oh my God, like those events are so important to a CFO.
I want to unravel that a little bit too, Evan, because, as I think about, Olivia, what you mentioned about bringing teams along in the testing journey and the results and how to look at data, and a no lift test is just as good as a lift test. I think this are all connected, right? And so what I encouraged my team to do often was act as an owner. You're a business owner. So understand the business, and it's to your advantage to give money back if that money's not going to do anything. People think really differently about, Evan, what you mentioned in terms of like putting money back if it's not working, if they think about it as their own, and not if they think about it, how big of a budget can I put on my resume? And so I think really embracing that mentality of acting as an owner not only does the right thing for the business, but it builds trust with business partners. So I think that's a really important principle to keep in mind.
Yeah, I have one piece of advice for folks. I've interviewed enough people where I think if the first thing you say when you're talking about your role and your experience is how much money you managed, I think that's immediately a red flag to me of actually think like, did you need to spend that much money, or is that a point of pride? And so that's just something interesting that.
Yeah, team size too. Team size I put in that bucket.
Yep.
I will remember, to Evan's credit, he was vulnerable, right? And he shared his baggage. He shared like, hey, I have this concept of marketers who just want to, show off their big budgets and big teams. And that was really powerful for me to know about Evan, because then I kind of just appreciated him more and understood. And so most, I think, CFOs as tenured as you, Evan, like probably wouldn't share that vulnerability. And I think that was so key in kind of building this dual trust that we built over time.
Anything else on the this idea, like how you actually build trust with your finance partners, Raquel? Any other like key moments of this relationship that you think were turning points?
I think this wasn't necessarily one single key moment. This was over time, but one other piece of maybe unsolicited advice I always give marketers is have really clear command of your metrics. Really understand your metrics inside and out, but not just your marketing metrics, but how they relate to the business. Kind of back to this theme of act as an owner, do what's best for the business. Really understand, for example, LTV to CAC and payback. How does that impact your profitability? How does that impact the entire business so that you can make those best decisions? And I think that also builds trust with other partners, primarily finance. Actually, I do have one moment that I'll share, Evan. I don't know if you remember this, our first offsite in Mexico. So at TextNow, they would take the whole gang to Mexico once a year. Yes, it was so fun. And we had lunch. It was like right on the beach. We're having fish tacos. And I'm saying, Evan, this 3-to-1 LTV to CAC is so crazy. Like, if we want growth, then why would we do this? And he really, talked through like the business profile we were trying to build, what kind of profitability goals we had. And I really understood how it all was part of the bigger picture. And that was really just helpful again in making decisions that were best for the business and not that just enabled us to whatever, spend more money, build a bigger team, whatever those things might be. So I remember that clearly because it was at the very beginning and it really set this foundation of having command of your metrics and understanding how it ladders up to the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to unpack the details of that as we go on. But what also was important probably, Raquel, for building trust, or what I hope was we didn't lock into that 3-to-1 ratio for LTV to CAC our entire duration of working together. But in fact, as capital markets changed, and the rewards from investors for growth right when in 2021 it was all growth and no profitability, 2022, and then in 2022 it like overcorrected to profitability over growth and maybe part of 23, and then you start to come out of that. So then as growth started to become rewarded again, we relaxed the LTV to CAC ratio. And because I'm watching the capital markets, I go, well, actually, growth is more important. Let's make it a 2.5-to-1 ratio, not a 3-to-1. And I hope that was like me. I'll just ask this question to you, Raquel, like building trust that like, no, it's not. Because sometimes CFO, oh my God, there were other executives at TextNow who was like, growth, we're never going to get there. And yet nobody's coming to save us if we run out of money. So my job is to make sure we don't run out of money. But I do have to like lean in when growth is rewarded. So I don't know, what impact did that have on you, Raquel?
I think it's amazing. I guess I'll answer that question with another anecdote, which is a lot of times when I talk to marketers and I question, hey, how do you think about your targets? And they're like, finance just gave them to me. And, so I think being empowered to ask the question, and B, having a finance partner that is willing and equipped to really give crystal clear answers and adapt with the market conditions or whatever it is the business needs is kind of that perfect match, right? Not that Evan and I are perfect in any way, shape or form, but I think it's really important, like ask the question and have a finance partner that can really articulate versus being rigid about like, this is just the goal. It's just what best looks like. So I think, Evan, to answer your question more directly, I think it meant to me the trust building, like, oh, I can ask these questions and I can trust Evan to have really good answers and we can kind of co-create what's best for the business. So it really felt like a partnership versus like, here are your targets, go do them.
Right.
Yep. That's great. This actually ties nicely to this next question. I'm very curious about this. Evan, let's start with you here. Like, what do you wish marketing people knew about finance? Or like, what do you wish they appreciated about finance? And Raquel, I'm going to ask you next.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I feel like, I don't know, where my anxiety is, my concerns are that's not commonly shared amongst the executive team is the scarcity of capital. Even at the company I'm at now, people are like, why can't we spend more over here or spend more over there? But nobody is coming to save you. I never wanted to be the CFO of a company that ran the plane into the ground, like that. Not on my watch are we doing that. And companies availability of future funding sources is not certain. Environments change. The board members that believed in you move on. Investors change. At TextNow, we needed to just self-fund ourselves. It just needed to come from profits. It wasn't coming from institutional investors. So that's one thing I wish. And two things are true at the same time. One, never waste a good crisis. And oftentimes companies need to be restructured and reorganized and all that. And so you do need to have like a fluid organizational structure. But I mean, CFOs, I'll just talk. I don't like making big changes where you're doing riffs and letting people go. So I always wanted to manage the company to what I called belts and suspenders. That means that you can absorb 2 shocks to like your financial condition, a macro shock and your biggest customer leaves or whatever they are, because I don't want to give the families that are relying on the executive team to manage this ship, in the choppy waters, to have them face unforeseen conditions. So anyway, it's the scarcity. Appreciate the scarcity of future investment dollars. Nobody is coming to save you. So we have to like what Raquel said, like treat it like an owner. We got to be like owners of this and know that nobody's coming to save us. And I don't often believe that every executive thinks like that.
That is so important. I love that so much. Raquel, how about you? What do you wish finance folks knew about marketing?
I don't know if this would be specific to, it's I think finance in general. It's not specific to Evan or Time or TextNow, but I think a few things that I've perennially experienced or had friends and coworkers experience is 2 things. One, finance or other teams coming and saying, "Oh, times are hard, cut marketing. Oh, times are good, double down." And these knee-jerk reactions, right? Because the beautiful thing about digital marketing is theoretically you can do that. You can't cut immediately, you can't pump it up immediately, but it has these long-term repercussions. And a lot of times when you're having that conversation, right? Like, hey, cut, hey, double down. And as a marketer, you're trying to explain that's going to have long-term repercussions. And your partners are saying, well, what are those? And how do we mitigate for them? And how do we, and it's like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't actually know. Like, I can guess that an abrupt cut is going to take X number of weeks for us to then ramp back into performance and efficiency. But it's a big unknown and it's a risk. So I think just appreciating that it's not a button you push without long-term impact.
And that was me. See, I definitely thought like Raquel was at a dashboard and she could just like change these buttons. I'm like, wait, just turn that one off and put more over here. But like the concept, I had no appreciation for like the consequences of volatility, and I really wanted it to be a slot machine, so I had to learn that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't that make our jobs easier if it was? And then I think thing number 2 was sometimes directionally right is good enough. Particularly for really data-driven people, they want certainty, they want accuracy. And sometimes even if you have the best laid plans and tests and tools, the data is going to be noisy. It's going to be a point in time. And for certain things, if it's a smaller budget or something you can scale slowly, or if it's not a one-way door, directionally good is good enough, because there's a huge cost to continuing to test and getting perfect accuracy. And 9 out of 10 times, you don't need perfect accuracy. But I think for that to actually work, it goes back to what we started with, which is trust, right? For us to say, hey, this is directionally good data, let's go do this. If we don't have any trust built between us, it's going to be a whole lot harder to get people on board versus if you're starting from a foundation of trust. For somebody like Evan to say, okay, Raquel and her team have really good judgment. I know this is directional, but I trust them. So that's really important, kind of tying it back to that.
This is so important. This comes up every day at House, which is, we expose this idea of confidence intervals around our experiments. Like there is inherent uncertainty in an experiment, and we expose that. And I think sometimes folks don't like thinking in shades of gray, where it's like, they kind of want the one number that they can take to the bank. And other systems, other models will give you that one number, but it might be completely imprecise. And so like the way I think about it is sometimes like an experiment will get you, it's like a compass, like it'll point you in the right direction, but not perhaps perfectly on that map. Whereas something like attribution might give you a number and it might be entirely the wrong direction. And this is something actually I wish finance teams better understood. It's like, I can give you a number, but it's probably not going to be right. So would you rather have this number that's probably not right, or this like range of outcomes that might be more likely? So that's always a really tough conversation to navigate. And even as good, I think, as we've gotten at measurement, like, there's still uncertainty. So there's just never going to be perfection.
Yeah, and as you know, from a finance leadership perspective, so yeah, I can be great with that uncertainty, provided we know, like, okay, and so we have this uncertainty, and when we learn more, if it's in this direction, we're going to do that thing, and if it's in that direction, we're going to do this other thing, and then that gives me great confidence that we're aligned.
Yeah, goes back to trust, right? And the trust building and all that work that we put into it, it really pays dividends in those situations.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's we don't have a ton of time left. Let's tie this back to incrementality. And Raquel, I think this question is for you. Like, how do you describe incrementality to your finance partners? What have you seen really resonate, or how do you really position it to the executive team?
Yeah, I think you really have to think about it as one data point amongst many, going back to our conversation around directionality, right? There's going to be 3 or 4 different models and data points that you use to make decisions. There's going to be maybe your touch-based attribution model, last touch, multi-touch, first touch, whatever touch you want to use. And that's going to give you one data point. Then you're going to have incrementality as another data point. Maybe a media mix model is another data point. I think incrementality plays a really important role in really giving you probably the most accurate view of what is driving. I need another word for incremental lift to your business right now. And so it's a really important tool to see a causal relationship between a spend amount in a specific channel and whatever outcome you're looking for: more users, more revenue, more profit. Those are not all, they're related, but not all three the same. And it's really actionable for marketers because you can see what that number is and then take action on it, versus something like a media mix model, which is more correlational and longer term, but also plays a role in understanding things that incrementality maybe can't measure, like future demand, for example. So I think it's a data point in the toolkit. And then I think the other piece of advice I would say for working with finance and incrementality is assume they know nothing. Not because finance knows nothing, but because incrementality is kind of this complex and relatively new concept in marketing. So just inbound, go in and assume your stakeholders know very little or nothing about it. Really walk them through the brass tacks. Here's how we set up this test. Here's what it's going to show. Here's what's not going to show. Here's what it's going to cost us. And do it over and over and over again, because repetition, I think, is really key to educating stakeholders. So don't shortcut the full details of what incrementality is, what it shows, and how you're going to leverage those results. And I've had to do it time and again at different companies. So you can't shortcut it.
Yeah, Raquel, I like that a lot, because I needed to be brought along, from the infancy level, not from an expertise level. Because, I'm thinking, I'm not going to think at 1,000 feet. I'm going to be a good partner at 10 or 30,000 feet. So when Raquel does that, it really sets me up for success.
Evan, was there ever an aha moment with a test or with the education that happened that made you kind of like buy into incrementality as an approach?
Yeah. I mean, I remember certain experience. We would pour more money in one channel with a thesis, and then we would either prove it or disprove it. I mean, I won't name the channels right now, and then say, okay, well, now we know. Oh my God, now we know, we learned something. We know this, so we're going to turn this one down, and we think we're going to test the new thesis over here. So I guess just sharing the results, the plain results from tests and trials, and then talking about what we learned and what we're going to do next. I mean, I'm not at I'm not at a digital media company now, and man, am I jealous? Like, I wish I was. I'm jealous not being able to have that understanding of what kind of returns we get.
At TextNow, we had this amazing head of UA, Noah Gutterman. You guys work with her. She's just incredible. And she had built the slide that literally piece by piece just showed, here's what last touch attribution shows is your CAC. Here's what incrementality will show is your CAC. Here's the reality. And she just did this very clear, simple math breakdown, illustrative example. And I don't know if that was a light bulb moment for you, Evan, but it was definitely a light bulb moment for a lot of us at the time, for a lot of the leadership and stakeholders. Just kind of like very simple illustration example of what the different data points look like and what it actually really means. I think that was a really nice way to keep it simple and break it down.
I have a couple more questions on just kind of operationalizing incrementality, Raquel. I think everybody buys into incrementality in theory. Like it makes kind of, obvious sense. So like, yes, of course, I want to know what would have happened anyway in the, absence of marketing and understanding the counterfactuals, kind of like scientifically sound. What issues do you see folks like running into when it comes time to actually operationalize incrementality inside of an organization and do this for real and start to really orient the business around it? Have you seen any like common traps that folks will fall into?
3 traps I've seen. One at the beginning is marketers kind of struggling to put together a roadmap of what are we going to test in what order. And I think for that one, it's really important to go back to what does this business need? What are we trying to do here? Do we need to quickly diversify our channels? Do we need to reallocate dollars? And working with partners like House to really build out that roadmap so that you're not stuck in a cycle of, okay, we did this test, now what? And you can kind of move quickly. So I think that's thing one. Thing two, I would say is when you get those results back, when you were looking at a CAC of, I'm going to make it up, like $100 based on last touch attribution. And now all of a sudden your incremental cost of acquisition is showing to be $200. And then you have a finance partner that's like, where in the spreadsheet are we showing this? And then you're trying to do all this math of like, do I show the last touch, the ICAC, the this, the that? That can be really, really tricky. So what I generally really push marketers to do and finance teams to understand is looking at a fully burdened CAC, right? Like take all of your users, all of your spend, and look at that, because if you're trying to do channel attribution, it gets messy really quickly. And then thing 3 is there's an opportunity cost to testing. I think often analytics and finance folks get really excited about, oh my gosh, now we can know the truth or as close to it as possible. Let's test everything. Well, again, depending on your business goals, if you're trying to scale while you're testing, when you're testing, you're actually cutting back on budget, which is awesome and it's the right thing to do. But just know that there is a cost to testing and doing that pullback. So really partner with your leadership team to figure out what is most important to the team and to the business right now and build that in. So you're not kind of shooting yourself in the foot as you're trying to pursue that truth.
Love it. I think this is a good place for us to end. Evan, Raquel, thank you both so much for being here today. This was amazing. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Thanks for having me. And Raquel, great seeing you. And you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Evan Fein, Evanfein, and be happy to chat with people.
Yeah, Evan, so great seeing you, Olivia and team. Thank you for having us. Likewise, just find me on LinkedIn, Raquel Alexander. I'm not going to spell that because it's way more letters than Evan Fein, but connect with me. I'd love to catch up, and I'd love to trade notes on this topic. So anytime.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for being here. That's a wrap on Open House. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good one.